Gentlemen, thank you for joining me once again on this Authentic Man broadcast, where we discuss all issues men and we challenge men to rise up beyond cosmetic masculinity, beyond toxic masculinity, and become the great authentic men that they were created to become. I do believe that there is a call, there is a demand, there is a need for us to step up higher on our masculinity and to become the men that we were destined to be. And there is greatness inside every one of us. There is no man that was created to crawl on the floors of masculine mediocrity, but every man was created to soar in the skies of greatness. I like saying that being a man is like doing skydiving on the skies of greatness. You must strive to be the best version of you as a man that you need to be. And we've been on a journey where in our last 4 episodes, we've discussed the 4 pillars of authentic manhood. But this week, once again, I'm very excited to just start another series where we are talking about the fight of your life, the fight of your life. And one of the things that I have come to learn, and as I've grown more in my masculinity and in my journey as a man, is that the battle of life is in our lives as men are real. You know, being a man is a battle. There is no man that is not battling something. Every man has something that is trying to tackle him down, that is trying to take him down, that is trying to undermine him. And so in the next few episodes, I'm just going to try to give us some wisdom and some insight that is going to help us in this thing we call the battle of life. But as usual, before we begin with our conversation, I just want to read a portion of God's word that is going to give perspective to our conversation tonight so that we can see what God's word says about the fight of your life as a man. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 24 to 26, the Apostle Paul gives us a very befitting analogy of the life of a man. And he says, this is the summary of what he says. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Therefore, I run not with uncertainty. Thus I fight not as one beating the air. Now, I like that last part of the verse because he gives us the analogy that life is a fight. But fights are not won when we fight casually. There is a disposition we must take as men so that we can be able to win in the battles of life. There is a disposition of our minds. There is a disposition of our hearts. There is a disposition of our behaviors that will determine whether the fights of life reduce us to victims or they prove that we are warriors and conquerors. And I want to tell you today, even as I begin my conversation, is that when God created you, he had wired you to be a fighter. That's why you cannot go through life being a wimp and being a victim and crying about every battle. You must learn to fight. I love one verse that I read in the book of Psalms many years ago. It says that God trains your hands to go to war. In other words, God is not raising men that don't know how to be fighters. God is out to raise men that know how to be warriors and to know how to win in the battles and the challenges of life. When they face a challenge, they don't turn their back in resignation, but they put on their fighting gloves on and they tenaciously engage and fight and overcome and tackle to the floor those things that try to undermine their masculinity. Now, as we begin to talk about the battle of your life, let's define it. What does it mean when we talk about the battle of your life as a man? And I want to give you 3 things that define the battle of a man, because anytime you face any battle as a man, whether you're facing a financial battle, whether you're facing a relationship battle, whether you're facing an emotional battle, whether you're facing any kind of battle you may be facing, a career battle, a business battle, a battle to bring your life into the next level, you will realize that any battle in life is basically about 3 things. And if you can take care of these 3 things, then you will have have a fighting chance and a winning chance in the battles that you face as a man. So let's try and define what is the fight of your life as a man. The fight of your life as a man is three things. It is a battle to make sure that life does not distort and undermine your identity as a man. It is a battle to make sure that life does not push you into a place of inferiority crisis. Any man that engages in battle from a disposition of inferiority will never win in the battles of life. You know, I used to love watching Muhammad Ali, and one of the things that Muhammad Ali would say, you know, anytime he was getting ready for a boxing match, he would say, I am a champion. You know, he would charge himself because he knew that anytime you allow yourself as a fighter to have any form of inferiority in your heart, any form of inferiority in your soul as a man, you have destroyed your chances of winning. And so the battle of your masculinity is the battle to make sure that life does not undermine your identity into a place of inferiority. Inferiority is proof that you have allowed life to distort your identity. You have lost the awareness that you are a conqueror, that you are a champion, that you are an overcomer, that you're not fighting for victory, you are fighting in victory. Whether you're facing a financial battle, you are not fighting for victory, you are fighting in victory. And so it is a battle to undermine your identity and to distort your identity. And so anytime you face a battle in your life as a man, one of the points of fortress that you must fortify and stabilize is your identity. Keep reminding yourself what God's word says you are. And I love what Paul says in Romans 8:28 says, no matter what I face in life, in all these things, I am more than a conqueror. In other words, Paul never allowed the intensity of the battle to distort the clarity of his identity. He understood, I am a conqueror. Irregardless of how much the battle is raging, it does not distort my identity as a conqueror. Number two thing that you've got to realize as a man is that the battle of your life is not just a battle to distort your identity, but it is a battle to undermine your character. In other words, the other place you must fight, the other fortress that you must safeguard if you're going to come out victorious, is the place of your character as a man. And what is character? Character is the willingness to do the right thing at the right time, whether it's convenient or not, whether you feel like it or not. In other words, you decide decisively that nothing will make me to compromise on my values. I am not going to undermine my character so that I can win based on compromise. Any victory that you get on the ticket of compromise is a counterfeit victory. It shows that your fighting muscle is weak, and that's why you needed to negotiate with your enemy so that you can get a free ticket to victory. But real men fight for their values. They fight with their values intact, and they do not allow life to squeeze them into a place of compromise. They rise up, and like Daniel, they purpose in their heart, I will not be defiled. A defiled man is a defeated man. But if you're going to be a victorious man, you must not allow life to undermine your character, because the battle of masculinity is not just a battle to distort your identity, it is a battle to undermine your character. Number three, the battle of your identity is a battle not only to distort your identity or undermine your character, it is also a battle to muzzle the expression of your authority and authenticity as a man. When God created you, there is a deposit of authority in you. There is a deposit of power and ability to dominate on the inside of you. That's one of the things you must protect. Never allow life to muzzle your dominion consciousness. You are not here to debate with the enemies of your masculinity. You are here to conquer them. But if you're not careful, life has a way of muzzling the expression of your authenticity and causing you to lose your fight as a man. And there is nothing as terrible as the man that has been muzzled to the place of not fighting anymore. The man that has resigned to fate and said, you know, whatever will be, will be. That is not the disposition of a warrior. The disposition of a warrior is, I know who I am. My identity is a conqueror. I know what I stand for. I refuse to be defiled by the enemy's food. I refuse to be defiled by the value system of culture. I stand for truth. I live for truth, and I walk by truth. And I refuse to be muzzled by life. I refuse to think like a victim, because I am a conqueror. I am a dominator. I am a leader, and I take full responsibility to be able to conquer and to live above the elements that try to undermine my masculinity. And so we've said the fight of your life is a battle to distort your identity, to undermine your character, and to muzzle the expression of your authenticity as a man. And when the enemy wants to do this, and when life wants to muzzle you as a man, and to cripple your fighting spirit, and to cripple your greatness as a man, there are 5 things life will throw at you, and I call them the big 5. You must be aware of them. One of the things that gives you an advantage in the battles of life is your quality of awareness and alertness. A man that is not aware and alert, when he's in the battlefield, he's a casualty already. He's a defeated folk, because anytime you don't walk in high level alertness, then you give yourself over to your enemies cheaply. And the first thing that you must realize that the enemy or life or culture will attempt to throw at you to destroy the fabric of your masculinity is fear. Fear tolerated is greatness contaminated. Anytime you don't fight fear, and anytime you don't raise your alertness so that you guard your heart as a man, so that your heart is not the hiding place of fear and intimidation, but it is the incubator of courage, then you must realize that there is going to be a battle of fear in your soul. And I like saying that when fear is tolerated, greatness is contaminated. There is a reservoir of greatness that God put on the inside of you. And one of the ways that life will attempt to cripple you from walking in the reality of that greatness is sowing the seed of fear, is allowing the germ and the poison of fear to enter into your soul as a man. And when fear enters in there, then your courage will be dissolved, your courage will be defeated, and you will not be able to fight effectively. I like saying, if you cannot win the battle of fear, then you will never win any other battle in life, because one of the greatest cripplers of the ability of a man to fight is the spirit of fear. And that's why the spirit of fear must never be allowed residence in the soul of a man. It must never be allowed to inhabit the soul of masculinity. Your soul was created to be a place where courage germinates, not where a place where fear is allowed to hide, and a place where intimidation is allowed to flourish. Allow yourself today to be alert, so that anytime fear is trying to enter your heart, you quickly rise up and you refuse to be a slave of your fear. The second battle that you're going to fight as a man is what I call the battle of discouragement. If the enemy cannot defeat you with fear, he will attempt to defeat you with discouragement. And every day of our lives, we are facing things that are trying to bring us to a place of discouragement and a place of just not having what it takes to respond to the challenges of life. You know, you lose a job, you lose a marriage, you lose a deal, and discouragement will attempt to creep into your soul. You go through a lean season in your business. If you cannot manage your encouragement levels as a man, then you will not be able to overcome the battles that life will throw at you. The measure of a man, and these are the words of Jerry Falwell. I love this principle. He said, the measure of a man is what it takes to kill the courage in that man, is what it takes to discourage him. When you mishandle your seasons of discouragement as a man, you will end up being a disillusioned man, a man who is despaired, and a man who is defeated by the battles of life, even when the capability to win is on the inside of you. Number 3 battle that you're gonna face as a man is a battle with failure. Every man fails. Every man encounters setbacks, but weak men allow their failures to define them, but strong men allow their failures to educate them. Anytime you go through a failure, you are being given a lesson, but if you focus so much on what you've lost, you will lose the lesson that you need to create and to manufacture the next season of your greatness. You cannot be a great fighter when you allow failures to define you. Small men are ruined by their failures, but great men are educated by their failures. Do not allow yourself to be muzzled and to be brought down and to be tackled by failure. Rise up and allow yourself to develop a fighting spirit that will cause you to rise beyond your failures as a man. Number 4 battle that you're gonna face as a man is what I call the battle of anger. When you allow anger to get the best of you, then you cannot have the best of destiny. Anger is a spirit. Anger is something that is sent to tackle us, to make us overreact when we don't need to overreact. If you read the history of the scriptures, by the way, the first murder that happened because a man refused to control his anger. Now, when you don't learn how to tackle your anger and how to control your anger, then you are reduced to a destroyer. You can never be a restorer when you are a man that cannot control your anger. And by the way, one of the greatest leaders in the Bible by the name of Moses lost his ability to enter into his greatness because he could not manage himself in a moment of anger. And untamed anger will cause you to act like a beast. It will cause you to act foolishly in a moment that you will define your destiny as a man. Anger, I want you to realize, is a legitimate emotion, but it is a bad governor. You must learn how to deal with anger, how to manage your anger. And I'm going to do a whole lesson on how to manage your anger just in the same series that we are going to be doing. I'm just giving you a highlight of the 5 monsters that you must tackle as a man if you're going to live an exemplary life. And then the last battle that you will face as a man is the battle of temptation. The ability to not succumb to the seduction of deception, the ability not to succumb to the poison of the things that give you instant gratification and then enroll you into permanent destruction. As a man, you must develop the ability and the discernment to discern temptation and to detonate it before it destroys you. One of the measures of a man is his ability to decode when a temptation is coming and to know what he needs to do so that he doesn't fall into that temptation. All men are tempted, but not all men fall into temptation. And the quality of your life as a man, by the way, is going to be determined by your ability to face temptation without falling into temptation. That will define the quality of your life. It will define the quality of your finances. It will define the quality of your relationships. A lot of our lives as men will revolve around how we tame the temptation tsunami when it comes into our lives, when it comes into our space. And so, just as a foundation, just to give this narrative a good ending, let me give you 3 things that I think you need to do if you're going to tame these 5 beasts before they tackle you down and reduce you into a man who is headed to a meaningless end. Number 1, if you're going to tackle these 5 monsters that attack our lives as men, and I'm going to be taking every one of these ones and discussing them in the next few weeks, but number 1, you've got to raise your alertness. A man that is not walking in alertness is going to walk in defeat. You cannot conquer an enemy that you're not alert to. You cannot be a victor when you're walking in casualness and low levels of alertness. If you go to battlefields, and if you've watched any movie that talks about, armies going into battle, one of the things that you realize they are trained to do is to be always aware, because you don't know when the enemy will attack. Your alertness will give you an advantage when the enemy comes. But when you're not alert, then when the enemy comes, you don't have a fighting chance. And then number 2, don't wait for the day of battle to prepare for the battle. When you prepare for the battle on the day of battle, you are a day too late. Commitment to winning is revealed by the ability to keep preparing for the battle before it begins. What does that mean? You continually equip yourself. You continually tool yourself. You continually increase increase your capacity to respond to these enemies before they show up. When your enemy comes and they find you unprepared and untooled and unresourced, then it means that will be their field day of battling you and bringing you down as a man and proving that you don't have a fighting chance. But if you're going to have a fighting advantage in the fights of your life as a man, number one, I've said you've got to raise your awareness. Casualness will make you a casualty. Alertness will make you a conqueror. You must be alert. You must live like a soldier that is alert and aware. Number two, commitment. Commit to continually developing your muscle, inner muscle, your mind, your heart, your soul, your ability to respond to life. Continue developing it. That is called commitment. Anytime you don't give commitment to your private disciplines, then you will always set yourself to be a loser in your public battles. You cannot win your public battles if you have been weak in your private disciplines. And that's why you've got as a man to develop disciplines and let them be intact. And then number three, you must grow in truth. Truth is the only thing that gives you weaponry that will help you to respond to these 5 monsters and be able to have a testimony of victory at the end of the battle. A truthless man is like a toothless lion. He may roar and make a lot of noise, but when the push comes to shove, he doesn't have what it takes to bite and to bring down the enemies of his masculinity. If you are a dog and you don't have the dental formula that is required, nobody will fear your bite. You must be a man that develops the truth in your life so that you have the ability to bite your enemies and to bring them down and to arise and become the conqueror that you need to be. And so we've said, if you're going to be a conqueror, raise your level of awareness, develop your commitment to private disciplines, and then number 4, walk in truth. Build your capacity in the truth so that you don't become a dog that cannot bite. Don't become like the shadow of a dog. Be like the dog that has the canines and the energy, and it can engage and bring down the enemies that attempt to come against it. I do hope that you're going to join me, by the way, in the next few weeks as we discuss these 5 things one by one and see how they destroy men and see how we don't have to be victims. How do we conquer fear? How do we conquer discouragement? How do we conquer failure? How do we conquer temptation? And how do we conquer anger? How do we live in that place as men where we are not victims of the elements that come against our lives as men, but how do we live from that place of victorious living in the mountain of conquest where we are created to live in? I hope that you'll be joining me in the next few weeks. I'm very excited about this series because I believe that when a man learns how to fight well, then he has learned how to live well. But when a man doesn't know how to fight, his life is reduced into a monument of defeat and discouragement. I don't want you to be that man. I do hope you're going to join me so that we can explore these issues and find solutions for our lives as men, so that we no longer have to fight to lose, but we fight to win every day of our lives. Otherwise, let me appreciate you for joining us tonight, and I do hope that you've picked 1 or 2 things that are going to add to the arsenal of tools that you need to work out the authenticity of your masculinity, and so that you can continue living on the mountaintop of victorious living and not in the valley of defeated masculinity. May God bless you and may God keep you, and I look forward to joining with you next week again as we look at the first battle you must win in your life, the battle of fear. God bless you. We'll see you